Hello, and welcome to my full review of Impact Wrestling's Rebellion 2023 pay-per-view. We're going to talk about how the show went, how each match went, results, and how my predictions went as well. So, yeah, let's just jump right into it with the pre-show, shall we? Apparently, there was a singles match that I missed. Wait, what does D mean? Oh. There was a dark match where Crazy Steve defeated someone called Sheldon Jean or Sheldon Jean by pinfall. That was not on the show that I saw, but it was a dark match, so that makes sense. Anyway, the pre-show and the bits that we could predict because they were pre-announced kicked off with Heath and Rhino versus Champagne Singh and Shera. So this match started with Champagne Singh trying to bribe Heath to take, just to accept a loss, to forfeit the match with some money. Heath, of course, being the plucky babyface, declined. And then we had what followed was a pretty standard tag team match, to be honest. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't anything groundbreaking, which we weren't really expecting. The heels cheated to gain control. Babyface's got a hot tag. You know how it goes. The heels got the win by cheating. I believe Champagne Singh pinned maybe Heath, might have been Rhino, with his feet on the ropes, and I think Shera was also holding his feet from the outside onto the ropes, so sort of double leverage advantage. I predicted Heath and Rhino to win. I just fundamentally like Heath and Rhino. But also, I just thought maybe, to get the crowd pumping, get the nice babyface win to start with. But no, so 0 out of 1. However, to get the crowd going, Rhino did hit a gore on Champagne Singh after the match. So, that's something, I guess. The other pre-show match was the Impact Knockouts World Tag Team Championships on the line with the Coven defending against the Death Dolls. I put this wasn't bad, fun enough match, no special notes. 2 tag matches on the pre-show. Pretty straightforward tag team affairs on both accounts. Both were decent, were enjoyable. I'm not saying anything negative about them by saying that. I'm just stating facts, which is neither of these were groundbreaking in terms of the tag team formula. And we weren't expecting either of them to be. So Taylor Wilde pinned Rosemary to retain the tag titles. And I put oops as my notes because now I'm 0 from 2 and the show hasn't even started yet, the main show. So that's fun. So I'm good at Impact predictions, it would seem. Anyway, on to the main show. Well, I'll have a little bit more to say about each individual match. I watched the pre-show. I didn't really take any notes during the matches. I just kind of sat and watched, and there was nothing that really stood out too much to me. Let me know in the comments what stood out to you about the pre-show matches, any particular spot or moment or what have you. Yeah, feel free. So they opened the main pay-per-view with the Motor City Machine Guns challenging ABC, which is Ace, Austin, and Chris Bay. It's the Ace and Bay Club, because they're in Bullet Club. They're the champions, or they were the champions going into this match at least. I did notice when Austin and Bay came out, they had I put 2 sweet knee pads. Basically, I can't remember which way round they were, but one of them had a 2 sweet on their left knee pad and the other one had it on their right knee pad, and when they put their knees together, it looked like their knees were 2 sweeting. Proper silly, but I just loved it. I thought that was a really cool detail. It really tickled me. So this match was all built around sort of the Machine Guns' experience in Ultimate X and how clever they are at these matches. There was a lot of spots where the Machine Guns were using submission holds to hold ABC in place, while the other member of the Machine Guns tried to climb. Plus, they were working body parts. They were working over Ace Austin's arm, Chris Bay's leg. Yeah, it was an interesting story to tell. The young upstarts trying to overcome the grizzled veterans, not only in the wrestling business, but in the Ultimate X match specifically. I think they were saying on commentary Chris Sabin's been in 18 Ultimate X's, which is the most of anyone ever. So, yeah, they were really playing off that. There was a weird spot where sort of all 4 of them ended up climbing up to the ropes, the ropes above the ring, making the X for the Ultimate X name. And then they all sort of shimmied into the middle and started kicking at each other and stuff. And then they all just sort of dropped down. and then carried on fighting. And I don't know if, like, someone dropped that wasn't supposed to, so they all dropped to save the spot, like, to make it not look too weird or something. I don't know. But, like, yeah, it just came across really odd. No idea what that was all about. The finish was kind of fun, but there was, unfortunately, just a slight bit of an issue taking down the second title, which made it not as fluid as it could have been. Well, basically, Ace Austin gave Chris Bay a peg up. Like, he put his hands out, and Chris Bay, like, put his foot on his hands, and then he sort of launched him up, and then he grabbed the ropes. Then he shimmied along. He pulled himself up to dodge Chris Sabin, and then scurried the rest of the way along the X along the ropes. He grabbed both titles and dropped them down to Ace Austin, who was lying on the mat underneath him. Because the rules do state you have to get the titles and be in possession of them on the mat to win the match. It's not like a ladder match where when you unhook it, you can stay on top of the ladder and you've won. You have to get to the mat and still have control of the prize in an Ultimate X match. Which I'm allergic to, apparently. Yeah, so the second title gave Chris Bay a little bit of trouble, and Chris Sabin was sort of just left dangling. He climbed up to shimmy along the ropes to try and stop him. Obviously, he was supposed to just not get there in time. But what actually happened was Chris Bay had trouble unhooking one of the titles, so Chris Sabin had to sort of just stop. So it looked a bit awkward. But all in all, this was a really fun match. Like, you know, I'm nitpicking at the bits I didn't really understand. But I enjoyed the more story-based than spot-based Ultimate X match. There were some interesting and fun spots and moments, but there was all the storytelling as well of how experienced the machine guns are, and they were just going to wear down ABC and win the match through knowledge, basically, through using the brains. I thought it was a really good match. Really enjoyed it. And it was the first one that I predicted correctly. I did predict ABC to retain. So 1 from 3, yeah! Next, we met the French announce team. One of them called Handsome JF. It's a bold name choice. With that face. Anyway, next, we had a Steve Macklin promo. He did some heel work on Canada about how it sucks that he's in Canada or something. You know, the standard heel fare. And then talked about how he'd studied Josh Alexander for 18 months and now just has to fight Kushida and, you know, woe is me kind of thing. But it wasn't really woe is me. It was kind of like just building up his preparation, how much he prepares and how much he's been preparing for this moment, only to have to now take on Kushida. So it was, yeah, I got the point. It was a decent promo. We got a video package next for the Design versus Henry, Dirty Dango, and Santino Marella. I noticed one thing I didn't note was that Santino is using the Cobra in Impact. So not only has he got his WWE name, but he's got his WWE finisher. So that's fun. So yeah, that match was up next, and it was in the predictions. I think I said it could be 3-on-3, could be 3-on-4. Who knows? It was 3-on-4. Dirty Dango during his entrance, just casually hopping over the top rope, is just stupid impressive. Like, he does it so casually. I love it. Joe Hendry cut a promo. Mocking, well, about the Design, mostly mocking Dina, you know, after his entrance before we got Santino out there. I didn't realize when I was talking about this in the predictions, I just didn't connect the dots. Angels in the Design is Alan Angels of Dark Order fame. So I didn't realize that. But yeah, Joe Hendry's follow-away slams are hella fun, right? Like, the fact that he does, like, he doesn't do a flip with it as such, but he does a bit of a sort of a quarterback flip. You know, he goes kind of over at a diagonal a little bit, and to add launch to it, I guess, is the theory. I don't know, but yeah, really good fun. And then, yeah, super impressive, the one way he did it to both Dina and Angels at the same time. Like, fair play, Joe Hendry. Fair play. So, the end of this match, I predicted this match one way, and had I known the story and been up to date with Impact, I'm pretty sure I would have predicted the other way. Because, yeah, what happened towards the end was Dina gave Callahan his old bat to finish Santino. And, of course, Callahan, after all the build and all the building the trust with the Design, hit Dina with the bat, gives the thumbs down. The fans went wild, chanted for the Cobra. Santino put the Cobra on. Santino hit the Cobra. Santino pinned. There was a replacement ref. Apparently, there was a ref bump that I didn't bother noting. And that was the 3. Santino got the win on Dina, I believe. By the sound of my notes it was, and I can't quite remember off the top of my head, so I'm going to go with that. But yeah, like I say, this made perfect sense considering the story going in. Had I known the story going in, I probably would have gone for the faces winning here. I thought the design, including Sami Callihan, were like a very cohesive unit. What do I know, eh? So yeah, I'm 1 from 4 at this point. Go me. Wow. Anyway, yeah, I put in the notes here, actually. In my defense, I didn't know about the Callahan story. That's not really a defense, is it? If I'm going to do predictions, I should probably watch the show. Lesson learned. There was a backstage promo next by Tommy Dreamer about his mum being in hospital and saying that after the match he was going to be going away for a little bit. Again, you know, presumably that's all shoot, and the going away for a little bit is to deal with the personal stuff. It sounds like maybe it's not going to be a happy ending, you know, not going to be his mum getting discharged from hospital. So, you know, fair play, you know, go take your time off. No matter what people think of Tommy Dreamer and the Ric Flair Dark Side of the Ring and all that gubbins, it's a guy preparing to lose his mum. At the end of the day, you gotta have a bit of sympathy, aren't you? Up next was a video package for Eddie Edwards and PCO. The first note I made when this match began, well, the entrance of this match began, was Alicia though. Like, Alicia though. You know what I mean. I still think it's mad that PCO was one of the quarterbackers and he's just PCO now. Like, the length of time between the quarterbackers and now, but secondly, like, the transformation, wild. Absolutely wild, but, you know, good for him at the end of the day. PCO was doing this weird thing with his shoulder. Is that just a thing he's known for being able to do, like Alexa Bliss's like hyperextending her elbow thing when she's been put in an armbar and she's like, oh my god, look at this, my arm's flopping the wrong way, and it's like, no, we just know you're double jointed, love. Is that just a thing he can do and he exploits it, or was he actually injured? I've no idea. But it looked grim. He had like a bone poking out of where his collarbone is, and it proper looked like a broken collarbone, but like he carried on the match. You know, and I know PCO isn't human, and I sort of believe that as a shoot at this point after this match, but yeah, I hope it wasn't a real injury. I hope that's just some weird party trick he's got. Anyway, yeah, there was a point where Eddie Edwards went for a buckle bomb and basically missed, and PCO just hit his head on, I think it was the middle turnbuckle. Like, just Edwards did not throw him far enough at all, and PCO was just fine. This is what I mean by him actually not being human as a shoot. The PCO salt, what's not impressive about that? Like, if he were 25 years younger, that'd still be impressive, the size of him. But he's not 25 years younger, so it's super impressive. I had to put in my notes here, actually not human, question mark. So we had Kenny the Kendo Stick make an appearance for Eddie Edwards, helping out, running interference. He hit the Boston Knee Party, which, by the way, great name for a finisher. That was a good false finish. He put PCO in the casket, and then as he was shutting it, like, I think it was PCO's knee and arm just shot into the space where the lid would have shut and blocked it from shutting. So that was a good false finish. Alicia hit PCO with a shovel at one point, and then to thank her for that, Eddie super kicked her. Obviously, he was aiming for PCO, but you know. And then PCO got the shovel, so he hit Edwards with that, and chokeslammed him into the casket and won. Which I was convinced Eddie Edwards wins this one. So, yeah, I put in my notes, this is going great. 1 out of 5. I did put, though, this was a really fun match. Like, I thoroughly enjoyed this, start to finish. Like, a good mix of good action, good storytelling, a little bit of humor, like, but not like tongue-in-cheek slapstick humor, like, you know, just a couple of little spots that made you go, that was good, you know, kind of thing. So yeah, no complaints with that last night's match. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Next, we had a Trey Miguel backstage interview, which, at least on my feed, had no sound. I don't know about everyone else. I don't know if that was an Impact issue or if that was an issue with me on my end. But the sound seemed to come back just fine when we cut back to the arena, so I assume it was on Impact's end. But if you could let me know in the comments, I'm just curious, did you hear that interview? Up next, we had the triple threat match. Well, the three-way elimination match, I should say. It's a bit different than a triple threat. With Speedball, Mike Bailey, and Jonathan Gresham challenging Trey Miguel for the X Division Championship. So this looked like a fun story coming into it, with Bailey and Gresham having like mutual respect, and Miguel trying to like interfere with that, and it sort of put him in the firing line a bit. But then they wouldn't just outright double team him because they just have respect for competition in general. And so as soon as they'd sort of teamed up and yeeted him out of the ring, then they start fighting. There was no like real handicap feel to this match. So it was a good mix. Having two babyfaces team up on a heel can be a hard dynamic because you end up giving the heel sympathy. But it was so justified and so brief in its moments in this match that it felt fine, in my opinion. It was a good story. So I didn't make many notes in this. I thoroughly enjoyed the match, but you know, I was mostly just sat enjoying the match. But Gresham was the first one eliminated. He put Mike Bailey in a figure four, and then Trey Miguel hit a Meteora off the top over Mike Bailey into Jonathan Gresham and then pinned him to eliminate him. Bailey sold Gresham being knocked flat in the figure four because he was obviously still leg locked at that point. Like, he sold that like it really hurt. It was a really good sell. And then Miguel, immediately after pinning Gresham, unhooked the legs and put Bailey in his own figure four. Which Bailey eventually got out of. They had a good back and forth until Bailey missed the shooting star press knee drop thing he does, where he does like a shooting star flip but lands knees to his opponent, lands like a Meteora kind of thing. But Miguel moved out the way, so obviously that hurt his knees quite a lot, and he'd already, you know, taken that damage from the figure four earlier. And then Mike Bailey tried rolling up Trey Miguel, and then Miguel reversed it, pulled the tights, and got the three. And that was it. A retention for Trey Miguel, which is what I predicted. So I'll take it. And he got both eliminations as well. So as much as he was like dastardly and a bit heelish, you know, he capitalized on an opportunity on the first, and he outright cheated on the second. He looks quite strong because he's eliminated both of them. Quite decisive there for Trey Miguel. And decisively not good at these predictions for me, but I am on 2 out of 6 now, so it's slightly getting better. Slightly. I legit got the 3rd and the 6th match right as well, so I am actually just getting 1 every 3 correct. Anyway, next up was the promo package for the Hardcore War, and then, predictably, the Hardcore War. So Moose and Frankie Kazarian started this. Myers came out next, and then Gujar. I forgot to write down everyone's full names. Obviously, I know Myers. I'm not familiar with Gujar. Bhupinder. I don't know him, honestly. I'm not familiar at all. But they were the next ones out, and Gujar saved Kaz from a double suplex to the outside by Moose and Myers, and then got Myers with a cheese grater. So Myers was bleeding from early on in this one. Next out for the heels, who had the man advantage, you know, the alternating advantage like you get in War Games, was so Kenny King came out for them, and then Killer Kelly came out for the faces. So they didn't just do like the women back to back. Well, I suppose they kind of did, but they didn't do like man, woman, man, for example. Like, so, you know, so the woman was the extra person. The woman was actually making up the numbers for the faces, which I thought was really interesting booking. And she did a great job. She put a staple gun to Kenny King's head, Brian Myers' foot, Moose's nuts, her own head, because why not? And then Misha... easy for me to say, right? It's not even Misha, it's Masha. Masha Slamovich came out to level up the number of women in the match, at least. And then it was Yuya Uemura. I struggle with his name. That wasn't lack of familiarity. I know him from New Japan, but I just struggle with his name. They were out, which obviously leaves the 2 team captains to be the last ones, which makes sense just on the basis that they're by far the oldest people in the match. I mean, I say by far, probably Frankie Kazarian's not actually that far behind, but he's just fountain of youth, isn't he? Like, he's just incredible. But yeah, it makes sense for them to come out last, both in kayfabe and just logistically. So Team Dreamer cleared the ring to wait for Bully Ray, who came out with a table. But Bully took his time getting to the ring, and Team Bully regrouped and then attacked from behind. And it ended up down at just the men on Team Bully and Killer Kelly when Dreamer came out to make the save. But Bully, like, holds Killer Kelly hostage in, like, a rear chin lock, like, rear naked choke kind of position, ready to take her down into it. And Killer Kelly bit him. So that's one way of dealing with it. I was starting to make a note during this match about the fact that Tommy Dreamer used a spinning toe hold in a hardcore war, which was really tickling me at first. But then they used it to like lead into everyone having everyone else in a submission. Well, it wasn't quite everyone. It was like a V shape, wasn't it? So I think, was it the women were at the tips of the V, so they were the only ones not in a submission hold that were applying a submission. And I think Bully Ray might have been the only one in a submission that wasn't applying a submission to anyone. But yeah, it was a fun, silly spot. Why not? It's weird because it was a hardcore war and it's quite a personal feud and stuff. But there was a reasonable amount of comedy. Like there was the nut shot with the stapler and then stapling herself. There was her Killer Kelly biting Bully. There was this submission spot, and then there was the finish as well. Before we got to that, Good Hands interfered on behalf of Team Bully, whoever they are. I literally don't know who they are. There you go. So Bully Ray hit Tommy Dream with a low blow, put him on a table, and there was a ladder set up in the ring as well. So Bully wants to climb the ladder, so he tells all the refs to get in the ring and then demands they hold the ladder for him. And all the referees are like, no, absolutely not. And then they start beating down Bully Ray, which was just hilarious. Then Dreamer hit a Dreamer driver, and all four refs tried to count the 3, and all got to a 2, and the fans chanted 8, which was funny because it was 4 2 counts, so it was 8. It was an 8 count. And then Dreamer put Bully Ray on the table, and all the referees sort of rushed to hold the ladder for Tommy Dreamer when he asked, because Tommy Dreamer's the good guy in this story. And then he hits a splash off the ladder through Bully in the table and gets the 3. And I predicted Team Dreamer to pick up the win here, so I get another point. Yay! 3 out of 7. Ooh, it's starting to look a bit more respectable. It's still under half, but somehow looks a lot more respectable. Just that one difference, doesn't it? Certainly from 2 matches ago where I was 1 from 5, this is a big difference. Anyway, up next was the promo package for the men's world title match. So I was like, oh, the women are main eventing. Cool. Then Nick Aldis showed up and went on commentary and announces on commentary that he's re-signed with Impact. But he says re-signed, but Nick Aldis was never in Impact. Magnus was in Impact. I don't remember. Was he ever Nick Aldis in Impact? Like when he was there full time. I know he's shown up, but was he ever like that? I don't think he was, right? But anyway, so that's a huge get, honestly, for Impact. That's a big get. So fair play. And then obviously up next was the men's world championship match, Steve Maclin and Kushida for the vacant title. I put that this was a fairly basic but very good match. There was nothing about this match that really like made me go, whoa! It was just all super solid. Like super good. Like I think that's fair to say. Kushida kicked out the caught in the crosshairs and KIA combo. And then Maclin powered out of the hoverboard lock. So they both kind of got out of the... They both had their false finish moment where they either kick out or escape from the opponent's like best weapon. But the finish was kind of cool. I'm just going to skip straight to the finish. Like I say, there was not much about this match that really stood out to me. It was just a really solid back and forth match. I really enjoyed it. So Maclin got Kushida up in a fireman's carry, and then Kushida in that position like applied a hoverboard lock. But Maclin, to escape, hit a Death Valley driver, and Kushida held on to the hoverboard lock throughout the Death Valley driver, which was really fun. So then Maclin lifted him back up and Death Valley drivered him into the corner. Oh no, that wasn't quite the finish, sorry. That was a really cool spot in general. But the finish was like... Again, Kushida locked in the hoverboard lock, and Maclin reversed it into a brainbuster, and it was a really vicious-looking brainbuster. If anything stood out about this match, it was how painful that brainbuster looked. Like, whoo, boy, for the 3. I predicted Maclin to win this, so pretty happy with that. And that brings me, astoundingly, considering I was just on 1 out of 5, to 50-50. 4 out of 8 predicted correctly at this point, so I'm pretty pleased with that. But yeah, this was a really fun match. I really enjoyed it. After the match, Macklin cut a promo, refused to let the referee give him the title, because obviously he's been feuding with Scott D'Amore, hasn't he, a little bit during the build to this. So he demanded that Scott D'Amore comes out and hands him the title. And D'Amore kind of threw the belt at him. He was going to hand it over, and then Macklin was like, no, put it round my waist, and then D'Amore, refused. So then Macklin hit D'Amore with the belt, and then Nick Aldis was on commentary still, and was like, I've had enough of this, and takes off his headset and rushes the ring. They square up, and stare each other down, and then Macklin leaves, in the, nah, I'm alright, mate, heel way, where it's slightly cowardly, but he's not, acting scared. He's just no, I'll save this for another day, you know the one. It's done a lot. But yeah, this was an alright post-match thing as well. Going straight into Macklin versus Aldis is an interesting decision, because that means you either have to feed Aldis a loss fairly early in his Impact run, or Steve Macklin gets a really short title reign. So, feel like they've kind of booked themselves into a little bit of an undesirable corner there, but we will see. We will see. They may well have a plan for this. Who knows? They may be booking their professional wrestling with a plan going forward. Who'd have thunk it? Anyway, next we had the video package for the Knockouts World Championship. And then that match was next, obviously. I was really surprised to find out that both of these women are 5'3". I put it in my notes because I just wanted to mention it briefly. I believe it with Deonna Purrazzo. She has, ferocious, short woman energy. You know where, you get, a smaller girl and she's you don't want to mess with her. I feel like Deonna Purrazzo has that energy. But Jordan Grace being 5'3" is a big shock to me. I thought she was quite a bit bigger than that. I'd have put her at least 5'8". She's got big energy. She's got I know that's not huge. That's not like Amazon or anything, but at least 5'8". I'd probably still have been surprised she was only 5'8" if someone had told me that, to be honest. So yeah, I was just really surprised that when they squared up, they were the same size, and yeah, just shocked. Anyway, Jordan Grace seems to have thickened up a little bit again, because I assume she's finished the bodybuilding, cutting, and what have you, and done the competition, and she looks good for it. And I know Jordan Grace doesn't care what I or anyone thinks of how she looks, and I, for one, don't particularly think she looked bad when she cut. She looked how she was supposed to look. She looked very impressive, very, very ripped, and a bit terrifying, which is a good look for a wrestler slash bodybuilder. But I do think she suits being just having a little bit more on her. She's being a bit bigger, and she looked good. She looked really good in this this one, healthier, because we all know bodybuilding isn't actually particularly healthy. It's a dangerously low amount of body fat. So yeah, she looked well. Anyway, so Purrazzo was disrespectful during the introduction. She when they sort of go, they do the in-ring announcements and they step into the middle and do the little taunt. So she did hers and then sort of wiped her feet in the direction of Jordan Grace, which is generally quite a disrespectful sign. But then once they'd introduced and the match started, they shook hands and Deonna kind of initiated it. And it's that's inconsistent. She either doesn't respect Jordan Grace or she does. I don't see what the point was in doing those back-to-back mixed messages, but whatever. Anyway, this, again, I didn't take many notes in this one. But I put this was a really fun, hard-hitting match. Really fun. I thoroughly enjoyed this. And I think a deserved main event. I think I don't think I'd have been angry with either of these matches main eventing. It didn't matter. Both matches were good. So yeah, no complaints. And this match thoroughly deserved it. Purrazzo picked up the win with a sunset flip powerbomb, and then Jordan Grace kind of rolled through it and stumbled, and then straight into a Queen's Gambit, which is basically a sort of 3/4 angled pile driver. Instead of lifting them so they're properly vertical, then sitting, it's lift them up to not 45 degrees, but halfway between 45 and 90 degrees. What's that, 67.5 degrees? Probably 60 degrees is more what she goes. So I don't know. Let's tweet Deonna Purrazzo, and she's very technical. She'll know exactly what angle she's listening to, right? And then she kind of drops down onto knees, I assume. I didn't actually notice, but I assume it's knees for safety. And spikes them into like the forehead. Quite a cool looking move, actually. Very good. And got the 3 with that. I'm pretty sure. I know Perazzo kicked out of the Grace driver. Jordan, or is it the Jordan driver? I think it's, I don't know, whichever one it's called. Jordan Grace's like finisher. Did Grace kick out of a Queen's Gambit earlier? I'm struggling to recall that exact detail, if I'm honest. But yeah, this was a really good match, really hard hitting, good finish. Just again, really solid. I think that's the word that summarizes this show perfectly. Solid. There was nothing bad. There might not have been a whole lot of really standout stuff, but just the whole show was really, really good. Like, really good. Like, just no complaints, basically, throughout. I predicted Jordan Grace to win. I originally said Perazzo and then was like, no, that feels bad. I don't like that prediction, so I switched. So I could have finished on 5 out of 9, but I didn't. I finished on 4 out of 9, which, again, from 1 in 5 is quite the fight back, so I'll take it. Anyway, after the match, they both shared a little chuckle. Like, when Jordan Grace started to stumble to her feet, she just laughed and sort of shook her head like, yeah, fair enough, you know. And then Deanna laughed as well. Then they shook hands and hugged, and then Grace left the ring to let Perazzo celebrate. And then I put, this was a very fun show overall. Generally very good match quality, story progression, etc. And they had the big return of Nick Aldis that really boosted the show. But yeah, I didn't put it anywhere in my notes as like a thought, but it's come to me while I'm talking. Solid is such a good word to describe the show. And you could say solid is almost like condescending in a way. It means it wasn't spectacular, but it wasn't. Even the Ultimate X match wasn't that spot-filled, stupid, high-flying, entertaining spot fest. It was more of a wrestling match that had an Ultimate X stipulation. And I, for one, really enjoyed that, like, personally speaking. Even the Hardcore War was very story-based. There wasn't a lot of huge, crazy spots. You know, like, of people falling off ladders to the outside through 50 tables like you normally get. There wasn't a lot of that. It was more about the story being told and the feud between the two teams. And I just think the whole show benefited from being really solid all the way through, really steady, a lot of story focused. There was a lot of story in the Ultimate X. There was a lot of story in the design match, obviously. A lot of story between PCO and Edwards. The triple threat, 3-way elimination had a really nice story going through it. Hardcore War was very story focused. And then the last 2 matches were more just really solid wrestling matches, but they both had story going into them and what have you. I'm not saying they were devoid of story, but I think they were more focused mostly on the actual putting together a fun wrestling match, and a very hard-hitting one, especially in the case of the women's. So yeah, let me know what you thought of this show in the comments. Was there anything I said here that you disagree with? Anything you particularly agree with? Let me know. Leave a like if you enjoyed this video, and subscribe for more wrestling-related content, be it predictions and reviews, watch-alongs. Oh, yeah, there was a watch-along yesterday I did. It was the 25-year anniversary of WCW NWO Spring Stampede 1998. So fire up your WWE Network if you've got it, and watch that with me. It was a lot of fun. I also do... We've got an Impact one coming up in a couple of days, actually. By the way, apologies for this review being late, I should mention. So I was at work on a waking night, the night of the show, and I managed to watch most of it because there's not a lot happens at that time in the UK because it's quite late. But honestly, I was just really struggling because it was my first waking night for a few days, so like my sleep pattern wasn't used to it. So there was a couple of matches that I didn't give my full focus to. Just because I was struggling and I was like trying to keep myself awake more than anything. Like if I'd have just sat there and watched, I'd have been in danger of drifting off, so I had to like get up and mosey around and stuff. So I rewatched and it took me a little bit of time to catch up. So that's why the review's slightly delayed, but I hope you don't mind. Anyway, waffled on about that for long enough now. Yeah, subscribe if that tickles your pickle, what I've talked about. We also play wrestling video games here sometimes and stuff like that. So yeah, drop a sub, it'd be greatly appreciated. But for now, all I have left to say is thank you very much for watching. As always, I've been EBEZA, you've been amazing, and I'll see you next time.